Hello, everyone. My name is Chuck Williams, and I'm here today to kind of change the tone of where we do our normal program because I want to explore the life of Roy Masters. We're beginning a project, a special project, and we're going to need some of your listeners' help as well, and we want to go through Roy's life very quickly, if we can, today, this morning, to begin to give you an outline of what it is, and we hope to, at some point, put this into a movie form. So this is the introduction of what we're looking to get. We're looking for a special chemistry in the story of Roy's life. Everyone's life has a chemistry. It has a way it developed and a way it evolved and what it ended up to be. And that's what we want to explore here today with Roy. And I'm simply going to ask him questions. I've known Roy since 1965. I first heard him on the radio at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was 18. And within a few months, my whole life had changed. And that was the beginning of a seed that was planted that took many years to grow before I realized really what he was about. And part of what I would hope that this is the beginning of is a way to show you that he's about more than simply what he says. There's a meaning behind what he says. There's a meaning in his stories that if looked upon as a larger picture, you will look into yourself and say, I don't think I understand this. And that is the beginning of your growth. If you think you know it all, forget it. Because the message we have today, the message that's behind these stories, is very deep and very profound and very simple. So, let's begin. Roy, you were born in London in 1938, is that right?
No, 28.
Excuse me, 28.
Yes.
It's funny how that name.
Getting on to 90 years old.
Yes. And
so you better hurry up.
So I better hurry up. So you started out in London.
Yes.
You were a child, busy time. What do you remember about the early years of your childhood that sticks out?
I remember a moment when I was a baby, about 6 months old, and my father was holding me, but I never forgot that moment because my father was very special. And that's what I'm looking at. It was always special and gave me freedom to do and to study and do everything I want without his permission. And I was very responsible. But the first experience I ever had, I can share it with you. And I was playing, let me see if I can give it further back. I have an aunt, and they had a living room that it produced itself way out into the street so you can see both sides. And in England, we have fog, and you can stand outside your house and you can't find your way into it. But this day, it wasn't so bad. And I was about 5 or 6 years old, and it was all fog. And you could see a man, I could see a man coming out of the fog into my view and then disappear into the fog again. And at 5 or 6 years old, I looked at that, and for some reason, I felt like I wanted to commit suicide. Now, where that came from, of course, it was a silly thought. I let it go. Now, that's very, very significant, as you will see. I think the next story, and we're going to go into a lot of really strange, magical, almost magical things. The next story is I'm playing with my cousin Arnold.
Right.
Arnold.
Yes.
And we were friends. And I was about 8 years old, and he was 9 years old, and I was in the same house as I mentioned a few moments ago. And he said something which was very cruel. And it affected me like somebody had put a stone in my solar plexus. And again, I become aware that it's happening, and mentally, without words, I want to say, how can words have the power to turn give me a feeling like I has a stone inside me. But the interesting thing, instead of getting angry, and remember, I have no tuition, nothing about this, it's just me. I didn't understand it, so I let it go. Now, in that moment, it began my whole life. I've been doing that ever since. So in other words, you can take me from that time when I was 8 to my almost 90 situation, and I've done the same thing over and over again. Nothing touched me. Now, I didn't understand what that meant, but apparently I had no emotion. In other words, I was pure. And my father loved me so much, he let me do whatever I want. And in the beginning of the war, I was about, 15, 16. I became a private sooner or later. I won't go into that. But I was playing with his machinery, and I was playing with chemistry sets. And he just let me do these things, and I unfolded like a flower. But I even blew myself up with doing chemistry.
I want to go back to those first 2 stories, because a lot of people hear those stories and they say, oh yeah, oh I understand that, but they don't. Because we've had the same experiences when someone threw an insult at us. There's a YouTube video up now of a little 2-year-old girl who comes to her father just crying because someone called her a name, and she wants her father to hug her. And her father's very understanding in the video. It's got 32 million views, but everyone goes through this trauma. The trouble is,
I went through no trauma.
You went through no trauma.
No trauma.
There was no trauma to pollute
life.
your nature, and we come from the trauma, and we can't get beyond it.
That's correct.
And I want to go to more of these stories as they unfold, as we get to them, because I think people are going to start to realize, wait a second, he's saying there's a way to live where we don't fight this all the time.
Yes, and so I'll carry on with the thought. I had a father that was unusual. He could speak 11 languages and do anything, build anything. And that's just one thing. But when I asked him walking down the street, I can remember it, I said, Dad, what's life all about? He says, son, all you need is wait and see. You have to find it for yourself. That was all. I remember that. And so my life began. And if you want to ask me some more.
Well, let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to the time.
One more thing, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
Okay. When he died, this father was unusual. And he never said much. But there was always a canopy, invisible canopy over my house. So I could do anything I want, and I wouldn't do any harm. And I would play and build and discover things for myself. I've always been discovering things for myself. I didn't care about education. I don't want to be taught anything. I want to discover it for myself. And he let me. When he died, make it simple. I loved the father I could see. But I didn't know I loved him. There was no emotion. But when he died, I was at boarding school. And I dreamed that he had died the night before. And then in the morning, somebody came in and says, the headmaster wants to see you. And I already knew what it was. And I had to shovel him into the ground. It's awful. I was the elder son. Mm-hmm. But what I didn't understand, and I hope people will understand this, I had only a pain, just a little pain. My father's dead. And I didn't say I loved my father because I didn't know what love was. I don't think I thought that way. But I had a little tear. And I didn't know what to do. But I realized the father I could see was the kind of father everybody should have. And so what I'd realized that this is a little difficult for me to say. I just feel just a little, something or other about this when I'm speaking about it. And so I can remember myself when I was younger, walking the streets and looking at a person walking the street looked like my father's walking. I didn't want to believe that he was dead. But then, and I would pull on their sleeves to see, and they turned around, it wasn't him. You know how that is.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, something said to me, "That's not your father. I'm your father." It came across without words. Everything I ever thought, beginning with what we were talking about, I just knew it intuitively. And I realized there was a God, and he was my father. And as long as I loved my father that I could see, I belonged to the father I could not see. And that's when I understood that there, right there.
Right then, when you were very young.
I hope that was interesting.
That is interesting, because I've searched my whole life for that same place to see, have the Father I cannot see show himself to me, and I say, oh, and just know it. It's a wordless thing. And that's the miracle, is that you were sent to the world and you were so young at this beginning point. And that beginning point is important, because it will explain a lot of what you have to say about the later parts of your life, and how, because really what you're saying is you felt protected and led for the rest of your life.
Yes, I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Then you didn't know.
But nobody could touch me. Nobody could touch me. I only remembered one person in my life that was worth discussing. I hated school. I didn't hate school, but I have to use the word. It was school, to me, was a waste of time. I just want to do what I want to do, and I want to create what I want to create, and I want to learn what I want to learn, and I want to discover it, but not by learning it. I don't want anybody to tell me what it is. I looked at when I was in boarding school before my father died, I looked at the teachers as the walking dead. And they are the walking dead, and they're worse today.
When I went to school, I could see that, but I wanted to deny it because everybody said I shouldn't believe that.
Yeah.
And that denial hurt me. Whereas you are head and shoulders above most of us, because you didn't have the denial. You saw it and you were comfortable with it.
I don't know if I can use the correct words, but I was comfortable with seeing things for myself. I was fourth in my class. When I went to the boarding school for a while. I was fourth in my class, believe it or not, but there was only 4 in my class. And if I was 28 in my class, I would be 28, because I don't want to listen. I do not want to listen to people talk and imitate it and memorize words.
Yeah.
Words are just words. I want to know what went beyond words, but I couldn't tell you that in those days. That's what I was thinking.
And that's what drove that desire to find what real meaning was. Here's the beauty, is that we're always fighting our own excuses. You didn't have to fight them.
No
you
excuses.
didn't have the excuses.
No, I didn't need them.
Yeah.
Because I always did the right. Now, this sounds egotistical.
I know.
But if you have that state, which I didn't know I had, I didn't know I was different from everybody else. I didn't know that. And years went by before I began to realize. It was 30, 40 years later. I realized I'm doing the same thing as I did when I was the first time that my friend or cousin Arnold, he put that stone in me. I never understood it then. But fast forward 30 years. Oh, that's what it is. If people are cruel, you need to not respond to that. But the trouble is, everybody's born in sin, if you don't mind me putting it that way. In other words, Adam and Eve, it's all about that. And so there's a divine order. In a manner of speaking, now I'm just giving it a little thought here, if you don't mind. It's a good place to give it.
It's a good place to do it.
It's basic. I went to synagogue and I hated it there. I don't go to churches. But I understand these things when I start to read or get interested in the Bible, which was a long, long line way from that original experience. But what I realized is that I don't want anybody to teach me anything. I will do work with the chemistry. I will take the stuff that's lying around and build things. And one of those machines that they go round and round when you pull the trigger, it goes round and round, and the lights go on.
Right.
I built that out of cardboard when I was 9.
Yeah.
See, and these are the things I enjoy. I want to discover it myself. Go away, leave me alone. But the person I was about to talk about, his name is Brimmican. I can remember he's the headmaster of the school. And there was something about that person that was like me, I think. Because the reason why I can remember his word, because I can't remember words sometimes when you're going to have to help me with it. But I remember that person, he smiled at me. He was the headmaster of the school, the ordinary school, free school. And he looked at me, I looked at him, and we knew each other. I never forgot him. He never said a word to me. But I could recognize somebody who was like me.
Right.
And everybody wasn't. And to continue the point, in my life, up to this minute, no matter what happened, and we're going to tell us a lot of stories here. It may take a few sessions here for you to hear all these things. I don't want to brag, but nothing touched me. Medical, physical, anything you want to say, I survived it. I survived it. Survived it effortlessly. I never had to react. And what I discover and to bring forward, and it's going to bring forward a whole lot in 1 second, that I never had emotion like anybody else. So how did I function without emotion? You need to be emoting. Is that an appropriate word?
Yeah.
In other words, you need anger, frustration, or longing and love.
What else? They'll say, what else will drive you?
Yes, but each one of those are emotions.
Yes.
And you can be controlled through those emotions. And then, of course, jumping back a little bit, when I was 15 and Hitler came into power, I thought to myself, how could this man take a country and turn them into murderers, and those who embolden the murderers, and that's all there was. You either had to be a murderer, a killer, or people who support the killing. Appeasers. That's what appeasers. And so I had to find out, how do you do this? America, do you understand that the same thing is about to happen in a different way right now? Well, we won't go into that now.
Did that question about Hitler increase your interest in hypnosis?
Well, there's had to be something. So one day, I was just walking in Brighton, England. That's where we lived, and we had a building that nobody wanted because the landmines on this beaches. So it was very cheap, and I was going from one place to another, and I've just lost my thoughts. If you don't mind me saying so.
But you were living in Brighton. My question was, you saw the craziness that was going on in Germany and the world. What did that attract you to hypnosis? So one day,
instead of going one way home for my diamond cutting, I was a journeyman and learning. I went this way. I went through this place, hidden in the street somewhere. I'd never seen it before, but a hypnotist was doing a demonstration, so I had $1. I went in, and they made them do all kinds of crazy things. Nobody believed that. That is just kidding. It's just not real. They're just playing that. I said, no, I see it. And I went to look for books on it, couldn't find anything, and you can't find anything today on it. Nobody. It doesn't, no, psychiatrists don't know what that is. But I wanted to find out. And everything I found out is magical, because otherwise you have words. And you look to people like psychiatrists and psychologists, if you want to find out what hypnosis is, they don't know what it is today. And you don't realize the whole country is being, all of America is under that same spell. All the people on the left, all of them, every single one of them are products of university mind control.
So you learned, you were fascinated by hypnosis,
Yeah.
and you learned how to begin to play with it, because it took a while as a young boy, essentially a teenager.
Oh, yes, I remember
So
the first time.
Yeah, you would play around with it, maybe with your friends. I don't know how that happened. Are there any stories that really
Yes,
come to
a
mind?
little story. So one day, having just trying to study, and the books were no damn good, excuse the expression. My mother had a friend, Mina, and from the First World War, and she had a headache, and I noticed she was suggestible, weak, and doing too much for people to be loved, if you know what I mean. And she had a headache. I've deserved all this as a young person. And she says, can you take my headache away? I said, yes, I can do it. That was the first person I hypnotized. And when she woke up, she says, oh, my headache's gone. How did you do that? Well, then I thought hypnosis was a good thing. But it takes a long time to find out that it's not a good thing. Mm-hmm. But I became very, very good at it. And to face forward just a long way, we can come back again. Yeah. I opened the Institute of Hypnosis after I was married. We're going way, way forward. Right. And I became astute. I became very good at it. I went in the military, and I mesmerized the sergeant. It drove him crazy. And to go further forward, then we can come back a little bit, if you don't mind. So you see people, sergeants, yelling, screaming, smacking the soldiers' faces in order to get him to learn to be a good soldier. But he couldn't do it to me. He couldn't make me react. And because he couldn't make me react, he reacted to me. Mm-hmm. And he went crazy. And there's a whole story about that.
Tell when you met the sergeant afterwards. Is that the same person?
This is what happened. Okay. I had $1. I was still a diamond cutter,
apprentice.
Apprentice, yes, excuse me. I'm getting old. And I was 19 or 20, 21 maybe, I forget. I walked into a dance. Yeah. And it was a couple of dollars, you know, and real music, real bands and everything else. And he's sitting there with a shandy. You know what a shandy is?
Your sergeant.
Yeah.
Former sergeant.
And when he see me coming, guess what he said? Ah! It's you!
And what did he do?
I don't know what he did. I can't remember, but he almost fainted. Because he could make everybody make them into what do you call it? Machines.
Right.
And you can't have a soldier that's a machine. You have to have a soldier with intuition.
Mm-hmm. You do.
And he stole the intuition, and I learned that I had a 10-time chance of, well, how can I say this? Out of 10 people, those who are taught that way and programmed that way die.
Yes.
1%. No, 10%. But
yeah.
I really don't.
1 out of 10. Yeah,
1 out of 10 at least. But the Bible says nothing could touch you. You can experience the disease from the left and the arrow that flew by night. There's something, nothing can touch you. And I could read the Bible and see that person. There's a person that was on a radio many years ago, and I forget the radio program. And he says they were asking this Jewish boy, when the flap comes down and you come onto the
beach
of France.
Yeah.
How did you feel? Were you afraid? He says, no. The whole idea. I'm just taking little pieces because we'll put it all together, if you don't mind, because these things are very important to me. I remember that man. He was not afraid of the arrows flying by night and the pestilence by day, whatever. And nothing shall come unto thee. There's a truth to that. I had that, and nothing touched me no matter what. And anything that touched me in a good way, good came to the person. Any time that person was cruel to me, they died. Scary. In other words, I have the power to destroy a wicked spirit.
But you don't have the power.
No, but it's given me.
It's the power comes through you because you're willing to be helpless.
I've always been that way, and so I never have emotion. Never. One time I made a mistake and found out what it was quickly, and so it's been ever that way ever since. Nothing touched me, and I don't want to take it further than that, because those are little principles, and you can.
Let's kind of go back to your military days. You were in the Army for a short time. You had these experiences. We've heard you many times tell about how you had them polishing your boots, your other guys,
Yeah.
and all these things happened. And it was, to you in some ways, it was sort of like an adventure, because here you were dealing with, I know I was in the basic training, and they're meant to smash your spirit and make you a soldier the way they want to make
but
you.
you know what I did? I learned judo by myself by reading a book. All I had to do is look at the pictures, and I had it. It's simple. It's just that easy. Oh, that's easy. I understand that. But in the army, in the military, I didn't have to polish my shoes. I didn't have to clean my rifle. And even though they called me a dirty Jew, I smashed a guy and threw him through the window. He wouldn't need me, the first time I came in. But I had a strength at 150 pounds that could take on 300 pounds anytime.
Right.
And we can talk about that. But what I did was entertainment. And so in the entertainment, I mesmerized nearly everybody in the platoon. And they did everything I want, and they did more for me than the sergeant. They cleaned my rifle, they cleaned my shoes. But looking back on that, even I hypnotized. One day we were doing out of duty, and two officers came. He says, I say, old boy, I heard you can do hypnosis. Can you hypnotize us? I said, yes, so sit down. And we didn't have to do the duty for a whole hour, 2 hours. I mean, no, till the morning.
Till the morning, yeah.
Yeah, I'm remembering that.
Yeah. And it was just to you, in a way, it was just like an adventure. You were trying this out, and also it was a way of surviving all the cruelties that were. Now, after you left the military, you eventually went to South Africa. How did that happen?
Well, I saw there was no future in England after the war. So I decided South Africa. My uncle lived there, so he invited me to come, and therefore I went down. The very first day, I remember this. I'm in Cape Town, where we arrived at the boat. I took a boat. It took about several weeks to get there, from England to South Africa. And waiting to go to I can't remember the capital of
Johannesburg?
Johannesburg, yes. And so while I was there, I was walking around looking at the jewelry. I'm interested in jewelry and so I was just looking in the window, and a black gentleman came and looked in the window too. And then
Africana.
Africano, Africano. They don't like Jews and blacks. And I remember this effortlessly. When this person approached the black person and wanted to give him harm, I stood between him and them and said, if you want this man, you have to come through me. And he was a big guy. And God help him if he would have messed with me. But anyway, what I noticed was the look in the eye of the black gentleman. I called him a gentleman because he's not a kafir. Kafir, yeah, they call him. And I saw in his eyes, and it said, not all white people are evil. That was important to me.
And you just did it as a second nature, but you ended up defending what his sense of right and wrong in himself by protecting him from someone who was.
I didn't know who that was, but he wasn't going to.
But you've been doing that all your life.
But the thing is, if he stood up for himself, he would have been to jail.
I know.
So somebody had to do it, and it was me.
But you've been standing up for people's innocent intuition all your life.
Yes.
And it just flows out of you. It's that intuition in a student who says, wait a minute, this is crazy what I'm doing, and you reinforce that by what you're saying on the radio or what you've written in a book. And you're leading us in this mysterious way, just like you showed the hope to that black man because you were willing to see what is right and wrong and stand for what is right. It gives us hope.
But here is the key we shall talk about many times, if you don't mind. I'm going to repeat it over and over again every time we talk, if it's okay, is that human beings should not have any emotion whatsoever. In other words, what has happened to me is I kept my innocence. I somehow, because my house allowed me a long enough sojourn to not understand it, but to become strong enough in my life to deal with anything. Because I learned, fast forward, and we'll come back to it. I learned that I had something unique. And I'll tell you when I learned it, a few years ago. I began to say human beings must not function with emotion because stress will use that emotion to put something of themselves in you and make you a slave of the person who has upset you. That's how Hitler used to do it. And in Hitler, and later on when I spoke to, I forget who his name was, anyway, I spoke to a very, very important person, and you can see it.
Drudge.
Drudge, thank you very much. Matt Drudge.
Matt
I always
Drudge.
forget names. I'm getting old, so I forget the names. And it's likely you'll get me to say a few things before I lose everything.
And there's part of that interview is on your Facebook page.
It's on my Facebook for 67 minutes. And this is roughly what he says. What I said to what's his name?
Matt Drudge.
Matt Drudge. What I said to him, it says, the Nazis or the Germans used to say that if you have an emotion, you're very emotional, angry, meaning that kind of emotion, you will see the Führer as a glorious prince. See? But it says, if you're angry, let me put it this way. If I can make you angry, what happens is you lose yourself from God. You react. You cannot serve two masters, right? Okay? So I have learned from what I said, and I spoke to Matt Drudge, and I gave this example. I said, the Germans used to say, if you're emotional, which means angry, if you're emotional, you will see the Führer as a god, a prince. And the god and prince will reward you for being subject to him, because when you get upset, what's in Hitler comes into you, and you become the extension of Hitler, and you've lost your way from the real life forces, and you become subject to him, and you feel guilty, and you want to love him now. You feel guilty.
You're making up.
Whenever a person gets upset, they feel guilty, and they do. And in that guilt, they got two choices: to run away and fight, or submit, because you got a little piece of them in you.
Yes.
And that little piece of you now has to be loved. And that's why we tend to love the bully and be a slave
Become
to the
little
bully.
Hitlers.
But Hitler knew how to do this and to create a whole country like that.
Yes.
Doing unto others what was done to them is not the same as doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, which is what I've been doing all along.
Yes. I want to get back to some of the, I'll make an announcement to everybody just to let the audience who might be watching on Facebook know. We're setting up a special link on Roy's foundation site, FHU.com, and it's a link about a project we have going now, which is development of a film of Roy's life. And we would like to get your input. We would like to be able to contact you, and you go to this link, which is FHU.com/film. Go there, you can register and get notification from the foundation about what's going on. And we also are going to want to have people who have testimony, who want to talk about the great benefit Roy has been to their life, how it's changed their life.
Millions.
And we want people who are interested in offering their own testimony in this way to register, and we'll get in touch with them and find out which ones, because we have a film crew coming rather quickly, actually, that will be filming a number of interviews both in Grants Pass and in Los Angeles. And if you're able to get to these places or within distance of that, register your name, tell us a little bit about you, we'll get in touch with you, we'll figure out which ones we want to have get interviewed by the film crew that's coming. So this is a big project. I'm going to remind you about it a couple more times. The link is FHU.com/film. And go there, register, and we'll have regular updates. That will be changing day to day as things develop in this process. And so I want to get back to your life. You went to South Africa. You worked there as a journeyman, finished your...
Well, now we're going to come to some wars, some serious stuff. I worked in a diamond cutting organization, and I was good at my work. I'm Jewish, and Afrikaners don't like Jews. Now, I want to let everybody know I'm a Jewish Christian. It took a little while later on for me to understand who he was and who I was responding to, not directly to God, but to him. I think I can remember, and you may have to help me here, but Jesus is, of myself, I can do nothing. The Father within me, he doth it. So I recognized it immediately. You didn't have to explain it, but I saw the Christians didn't understand that. They have people who sit on the podium every Sunday and teach them words. I don't like words all by themselves. I have my words, but I need someone to tell me what to say, but not people, the school teachers or in the universities, and to memorize it and get some kind of value from it. See, I don't know what you call those things.
A degree or
a
whatever.
Degree.
Yeah.
Sometimes I lose a thought. You'll forgive me. What I see is that the words of the world are juxtaposed of the wordless word in the heart. And the wordless word in the heart takes away emotion. It takes away the emotion, because Adam, when he reacted, is the same thing as we do when we are children. We come into the world, and when we come into the world, you cannot say that a person is guilty. As children come into the world as Adam did, with intuition. But when they come into the world, they come into culture. And there's a long line of people of every race and color and creed that, how can I say it?
They perpetuate the culture.
In other words, every country on earth has emotion, everybody in it. Mm-hmm. ISIS, America, England, and so when you come into the culture comes into you through your parents, because your parents are standing in your parents' shoes, and the parents and the grandparents are standing in the shoes, all the way back that leads to Paradise Lost. See?
Yes.
And so when you come into the world, the culture, whatever the culture, if you're in Borneo, you'll be a cannibal. In Hitler, you'll be a Nazi. In America, you can be free. But there's forces, and I knew that in 1960, when I left my diamond cutting and entered the world of where I was working as a hypnotist, and how I got to be that way. I had, while I was working in
South Africa?
South Africa, let me see, where was it? Where I was working, I have to let one go. It's a very important one, but I lost the thought of it.
But I want to get back to, because there's something happened. You were in South Africa for a while, and you were working, helping your brother go to school.
You've brought me back.
Okay.
And I don't want to brag. Understand, I don't want to brag. And so while I was diamond cutting, I was making a living.
Let me add this, because it's while you're diamond cutting, what you're doing, we're telling a story. It sounds like bragging, but we're actually laying the foundation for a movie that tells a story, and they have to know the story too. So we're trying to put all these stories in a sequence so that the movie people can look at this, and people in the audience can look at this, and because a movie is a series of stories. So go ahead and tell, your story it's well placed, it's not bragging, it's letting us know how you went through this, what you went through, what grew, what helped you grow.
I have a life of horror, but isn't horror to me.
Yeah.
Nobody could survive it. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you why.
And this is all good training for your help to the veterans who had a life of horror, and you're trying to show them how they can survive that.
Well, yes, you mean,
yes, something like that. We'll get to that real quick.
Yeah. So here I am. I've left England. I've got my brother with me because he has no father. I pay for everything. I put him through to
architecture school.
Yes, that's right. You remember that. I'm glad you're doing this because I forget it sometimes. And you know how hateful those people in South Africa can be. And I forgot the name of them.
The Afrikaners.
Afrikaners, yes.
They're natives and they're belligerent, and a lot of them are very racist.
Yes. And this one was training. What is the name of the big sports situation? Every year we have all these.
The soccer?
No, it's a whole thing about life.
The Olympics?
Olympics.
Yep.
There it is. Yes, I'm losing some of those words. You forgive me. I'm getting old. I appreciate your thought, your help. And so the Afrikaners didn't like the Jew, and I was making a good living, so they created it. Now, what's the other thing? What is the thing when you have people giving
strike?
A strike, but you belong to
a union.
Union.
Yeah.
That's right. And I appreciate that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to talk if you didn't understand what I'm saying. And so all of a sudden, I have a person who's training for that situation, and he was 260 pounds. And he was weightlifting, and he was fighting, boxing, whatever it is, wrestling. And he didn't like me. And I said, let's go upstairs. I'm 155 pounds. Let's go upstairs and let's not fight. Well, he couldn't touch me. I was through his legs, over his head. And he got so angry. And we got that next day, he turned around and smashed his head on my nose. Within seconds, he was on the ground, and then it pulled me off. Well, I don't know, I don't feel anything. I'm not angry. And this happened also in my uncle's factory back in England, Brighton. Same thing. I was 15, the other guy was, all they ever went to was hospitals. I don't remember, can't claim that I did it. I can't complain or can't say that I understood it. It's a gift. It's a gift of not being emotional. You have a power. When you have a power like that, which I didn't know I had, and I'm talking about the fact of what it does, that anybody, no matter how big they are, can approach you. And if they try to provoke emotion, which causes them to control me. If you look for a bully, if you see a bully, the first thing they will do is, okay, or say something mean, you dirty Jew, or something like that. Or whatever it is, because we all experience bullies, don't we? Mm-hmm. In any shape or form, it's there. And they've also been bullied, but they become the bully. In other words, their father's a bully, they become a bully. So when a kid comes from a home that's cruel and being beaten up, he comes to school angry and crying, and somebody might say, "Hey, Joe, what's the matter?" "Shut up!" Because he's taken the nature of his father. And he discovers, and everybody goes, "What's the matter with Joe? What's the matter? Why is he doing this? He's not the same." And they come back again. "Shut up!" He's beginning to see that if he acts like his father, he has control over others.
Yes.
And he could become a gang leader.
Yeah.
See?
I see. I went through it myself.
But you can also create a whole country.
Yeah.
All you have to do is respond. And as long as you respond, and the average person will start this way. "Hello, you stupid idiot." You can imagine things like that. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea is to irritate you, and if it doesn't irritate you, they find some other ways of messing with you. And that's number one. Number two, they start to push you a little bit. And then you got two choices. You have to give in, or you have to fight, and you lose either way. And if you're stronger than them, they lose, but it still goes on the same way with that person in charge and creating the problems, doing unto others what was done unto you. And the whole country can be overcome that way.
Yeah.
You see.
I remember over the years hearing you tell stories when you left South Africa and then you decided to come to America. And you came on your own.
Yes,
right?
I came with my brother.
With your brother came to America. And you came here, and at first, I guess, what did you do when you first came? Did you just work as a diamond cutter? How did that work?
I went to my uncle. I had to fight him too, because his wife was jealous of his kid. That was my father's brother I never met. Mm-hmm. And she was crazy. She eventually had a mental thing, what they call it. They had to do something to her head so she could be normal, so sort of pseudo-normal. Mm-hmm. But I had to fight him too.
And you came to America.
I came to America.
Now, did you just come here to live and work as a diamond cutter? Or how did that work?
Well, I did. I worked for my uncle who had a jewelry store, but I didn't use my expertise. And eventually, I bought an old truck. I went and bought some diamond cutting machinery, which is about 500 pounds. I went by myself from jewelry store to jewelry store, and said I can bring a diamond cutting machine in and demonstrate how it's all done. And at the age of when I met my wife, I had $10,000, and that $10,000 was going to be put to me understanding why the world is what it is, and how many Hitlers you can have, ISIS. If it isn't one thing, it's another. And the reason for that is because in America, I see that without realizing you have a media that's a liar. It's full of lies, and it's come from Russia. It began with Russia. And what's the name of that, the way that they think?
Communism?
It's communism, but there's another name.
No.
Marxism.
Marxism.
It is. They have discovered the very thing I discovered. All you have to do is take I'm looking for the words. I'm trying to find the words. I'm sorry about this, but it's the media. I'm looking for the word media. Create a media that lies. The truth has to be lies. And so I'm going to take it back just a little bit to when I said, when you look at Hitler in emotion, he looks like an angel. But on the other side of that, if Hitler, evil as he is, and he's intimidating you to become the extension of him, if I upset you, you'll become the extension of me.
Yes.
If you get upset, a little piece of myself gets in you, and a little piece comes to me, and
I actually become addicted to you.
That's right. You become subject to me.
Yeah.
And so you tend to love me because you are becoming something.
That's right.
And he's helping you to become something. You see, so
that's why you have so many people over the years who are your friends, and now they're nowhere to be seen.
They're frightened of it.
As they're your friends, their friendship gets corrupted because you may do something that upsets them, and that addicts them to you, and then at some point they turn the other way.
Well, this is very close to it, is that I represent, without knowing, without any feelings. I have no emotional feelings, so you cannot upset me. Mm-hmm. Jesus could feel pain. If I sit on a hot stove, I jump up. That's not the same thing as emotion. Right, correct?
Yes.
Emotion is for monkeys. Emotion is for lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Okay? Mm-hmm. They function, run, fight. And when they finish with it, they're eating their dinner, and there's no more. But when human beings become emotional, they are obeying, they are reacting to evil in a person who may not think he's evil at all, like a father being too cruel, too angry with his kids, too impatient. That's enough to destroy a kid.
Yes.
And when they come into the world, they come into the world of that. And every family has that. Or you've got a family that is too kind. But it's an emotional thing, because when you're too kind to somebody, you want them to be kind back to you. Mm-hmm. And you become a slave of that, or they become a slave of you. Mm-hmm. There's nothing our whole world is finished right now. America is almost finished because you had Obama. And I could see he was from some other world. And he was an abuser. He has been programmed. He has been filled with money behind the scenes to increase his ability to charm people. It's to love the worst in people. To love the so he starts with loving the worst in people. And all they are is worth it. All they are is worth a vote. That's all they're worth. He doesn't care for them.
And you see, many of the people he brought into government were the people that were the worst of people.
But I understood that. And the media came at me. And for 50 years, and I also discovered how to overcome post-traumatic stress disorder. Mm-hmm. That's why I got this thing here.
Yeah. I'll make another announcement about the link on FHU.com. It's FHU.com/film. If you're interested in being part of this project or just want to keep updated, there's a place there where you can fill out your information, and we'll stay in touch with you. And there'll be a lot of things happening. What I want to do now, because when I met you in 1965, heard you had a little 15-minute monologue on radio in Los Angeles. I was home from college for the summer. I went to college in San Francisco and just finished my freshman year. And my brother heard you on the radio, this 15-minute monologue. He says, you got to listen to this guy. And so we go down to your little storefront on Southwestern Avenue.
I remember that.
And you'd have a Sunday morning talk and a Thursday evening talk. And it was just you. You were the engineer, you were everything, and you would do your pre-recorded programs on the radio on an FM station. And for some reason, I was at a point in my life where that just struck home with me, what you were saying. And I immediately...
And you're a very intellectual person.
I was an intellectual person.
And that was the problem.
That was the problem.
It's too many words.
Too many words, too many lies I bought and tried to act out for other people and feed it back to them.
And show how clever you are.
Yes. And what happened was I got to this point about 6 months before I heard you where I was praised by everybody for doing something I thought was wrong. And I kept saying that, it kept occurring to me, this is not you. This is not you.
You saw it.
And I immediately quit what I was doing that they thought I was wonderful at. And I tried something else and that didn't work. And I tried something else. And so I came home from school, heard you on the radio, went to this little, like 15 people would show up at a Sunday session and they'd come there and you just had the long playing record and you had your book, Your Mind Can Keep You Well. How did you get there in LA from being a diamond cutter, traveling the country with your demonstrations? Quickly, what little stories can you just throw out?
I was traveling to all the special jewelry stores. Mm-hmm. And I got married. And I continued going to the jewelry stores, earning a very good living. Okay? And then I just remember buying a house, my first house. And there was all kinds of bugs and things, and we had a stamp on them. I mean,
this is probably Houston, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the bugs in Houston.
And so, but one day, I got fired from my job, and I had a child, so I couldn't go any further. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a lot of money, but I saved it. And then all of a sudden, I heard a scream, and a little girl fell down. And there's a headline news you can see on my Facebook if you want. I think it's still there. Mm-hmm. We'll put it up if anybody wants to see it. It is a full page, front page story.
So the little girl, so you hurt her arm?
She smashed her arm and it was broken and the pain was agonizing. And so this is the beginning of me starting the Institute of Hypnosis, mm-hmm. which I worked for 3 years and 3 months and realized, oh my God, what am I doing? And I found myself unconsciously changing over from hypnotism to unhypnotize. In other words, what I learned from hypnosis is that the whole human race is under it and they don't see it. My wife sitting in this room here, I'm married 64 years, okay? And I'll just tell you how strong I am, basically. I met her, my brother was with me on my way doing my diamond cutting. And I saw this pretty girl. And she looked like my mother a little bit, I suppose. And I sat in the car with her, and she said, I had a headache. I said, I can take care of it for you. And to my surprise, I got everything she ever knew about her sisters and brothers. And I said, so when she opened her eyes, I said, your brothers are this, your mother is that, etc., etc. She says, how did you know? I said, I got it out of you just now, but you couldn't remember it. And it says something. If you're in a hypnotic state, you do not know that you are. Every person listening to me in this audience are still in that. Even though they've come, they have not completely seen what needs to be seen the way I have it. In other words, everybody, let me just sum up all the things we've happened up to now. What I have learned, what I'm trying to say, which is contradiction to what everybody believes, that emotion is beautiful. You could be happy, or on the other hand, you could be miserable. But the problem is, happiness is an emotion. It's a lie. It's an happiness. There is no happiness when you feel happiness. It's a feeling.
Yes.
It's an illusion. A feeling is an illusion. And so what I have recently learned, very clear, looking back all of the things I ever did, which we're going to talk about, is recent, in the last couple of years. No emotion, but how do you get rid of emotion? You've inherited it. You're born in sin. What does that mean? It means you were born with intuition that Adam had. You have that intuition, but it's mucked up with all emotions. And therefore you're subject to it. You're subject to the school, to the universities. It's all words, 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 thinking that words, the more words, the more you can manipulate people with words, because words carry authority. And if you're stronger than them, then your words overcome their resistance to those words. And so therefore they take on the nature of the bully and either become a bully themselves or become subject to the bully themselves. That's all you've got. And if you look very careful, it is a system. Doing unto others was done unto you. And it goes, every country, every psychiatrist, not a psychiatrist, the kind of person that Russia, what word did I use? As
well, the manipulators, the programmers,
yeah,
the media.
Yeah, but the media have that.
Yeah.
And the media come from a school, from a university, whereby their minds are screwed. But in order to get their degree, their eagerness causes them not to question. They just want a degree. They want to become something. But if you look today at the universities, they've turned out idiots. Not only turned out idiots, that's all right, but they've turned out people like themselves. And that's called media. And the media are playing with our minds. And they have the power of being an organization that has power, and I'm trying to find the word for it. It has access to the minds of people. And many people do not know how to deal with this, the videos and all the comments they have and all the lies. But lies have to be truth, and truth has to be lied. And half the country is screwed. And if you'll forgive me, I am an expert, if I may say so myself, because I understand myself now without bragging. I know how to change this country back again in a few months. Because all of those crazy people, all those people who don't know how to deal with Donald Trump and crying and all this, all that stuff is designed to change their loyalty to America with virtue and demoralize them with unvirtuous behavior and silly things, a way of helping them to overcome their silly little problems that only make them worse. I know how to do that. And I'm saying that up front because I can prove it.
But that's where the meditation comes in, the how-to. So many people will be full of all sorts of words and philosophy, but they don't have a how-to that's a very simple process that you can practice in your own home.
Go back to that moment when I said, how is it that I feel a stone in my body? I got a lot to say about that. We're going to talk about this in the future. But I still remember that moment. I said, how is that possible to put a stone? It felt like a stone. It wasn't like a stone. I'm 8 years old. And then how would an 8-year-old react? Angry.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I just wondered. That's interesting. I let it go. I've been letting it go up to this minute. That's all you need to do is let it go. But the trouble is, if you have come into the world and the world has come into you, you are taking shape from the world. So if you're born in Borneo, you'll be a cannibal. And you think the cannibal is normal, and you dare not stand up to all the other cannibals who will kill you. And it's the same thing with Hitler. You don't dare once it starts. It gets to a point where you can't turn back. You have to be a bully and a killer, or you have to be a servant of the killers. See? And that's what's happening in America. And they've done it so well. I would say Russia. This is Karl Marx. Karl Marx accuse others of what you do. Mm-hmm. Accuse. So if I come up to you in a strong voice, words, human words, but not God words, different, coming from a different place. Words can come from a dark side. Words can come from a bright side, correct?
Yes.
If there's a dark side and evil, there's got to be a good. But when I spoke to, what was that person's name?
Matt Drudge?
Yes. What I said to him, the Nazis used to say, you have to see Hitler with emotion. And I'm going to come back to a point here. You see the Hitler as emotion, he becomes your boss because when you react to him, he loves you for it and is satisfied that you are now subject to him. He loves you for your servitude. And you begin to take on his identity and do what he wants. And then you can do to somebody else and create a whole country like that. Do unto others what was done unto you. Big difference from doing unto others what you would have them do unto you. That's different. That's magic. But how do you get to the magic? It comes back to me looking at the stone in myself and saying, it's interesting. But the question is, I didn't ask what it was because I didn't know how to ask. I didn't know, I understood that, I didn't understand that I was innocent. I had kept my innocence because my father had a canopy over the house and let me go and hardly ever corrected me, but let me discover things for myself. That's how we learn. Learning, having the opportunity to learn and discover things for yourself and go on and on like that. So I became on and on. As a physicist, I wrote, understand how the universe works far, far ahead of all the other psychiatrists and psychologists and scientists. I'm sharing with that.
I agree with all this, but I want to get back
I don't want
to the meditation.
Yes.
Because the meditation was something you came up with to try to get people to see life the way you saw life.
Well,
How did it evolve? What brought you to that?
It was, what I discovered is, it was discovering me. I don't know how to say this, but the 3 years and 3 months I opened the Institute of Hypnosis, it was, how can I say it? During that period of time, even though I was doing hypnosis and things like that, I felt uncomfortable. I sensed something not right. And what happened is, one day, a person came in. This is how it starts. And he had been drinking for 29 years and couldn't stop. He says, I'm going to try hypnosis for a change. And this is part of all the things I'm beginning to understand about hypnosis. Hypnosis is what the world has. Hypnosis makes it impossible for you to see that it's not you. There's something in every person that isn't them, but they think it's in them. And so if they think of it as in them, they do the thing that the thing in them. They do what the thing in them does, but they don't know they have a thing in them, the identity of their father. And it all goes all the way back to Paradise Lost. All the generations have the same experience. They come into the world comes into you, and the world comes into you, then you're standing in your father's shoes, and then you're doing to your children what was done to you, and it goes on and on, multiplying until you have a whole country. Mm-hmm. It takes a few years, exponentially. And so, where was I?
The meditation. I keep
yes, he sat down there, yeah. And I said, this man is difficult. He doesn't believe in it. So this is what I did. Intuitively.
Intuitively, that's it.
Okay. Sit down, close your eyes, look at your eyelids. I knew that much. But that was the hypnotic part of it. Mm-hmm. And said, now, every time you see a thought, look at it. Don't let it get away from you. Just look at the pixels that flash across the screen of your mind. If you close your eyes, there's still a little flickering, and you can see it in the darkness. Mm-hmm. So there's some kind of light that's coming through. I see something. If you close your eyes in the darkness and you're still light inside your eyes, the truth of this, if you have what you call a nightmare, you've got 3 dimensions. And where's the light coming from? You're asleep. It's dark. You got a dream. Or what is it? What kind of dream is it when you have a dream that's going to scare the heebie-jeebies out of you? You see that in 3 dimensions, mm-hmm. and a light shining on it from the inside. There's a light from the inside, and there's forces from the outside. Those emotions, and those emotions allow ugly thoughts to enter into your mind and struggle and be terrified even in your own dream. But I understood these things, and I begin to see that everybody on earth is in a hypnotic state and they don't know it. You didn't know it.
I didn't.
And they can see you, but it's not on we don't have you on there anymore, but but you're sitting in a group of people and sharing your experience. But there was a time when you could see yourself in that anti-hypnotic state. Mm-hmm. And you want to describe it to yourself. I don't think you ever saw it for yourself. It was astonishing.
Here's what I
You-
find is I want to deal with this meditation because somehow, intuitively, you discovered a little process with the gentleman sitting there, closing his eyes, and what happened to him the next day?
That's right. So you can always bring me back to it
Yes.
because you experience it.
I wanted in your words how this evolved for you to see this was working and what the essence
it was
of
working quicker than yours.
Yes.
That's making a point.
It's because he was ready.
All right. You come back to Roy Masters with a stone in his. And I said, I wonder what that is. That's all you need.
That's it.
Nothing more.
Nothing more.
Yes.
But the meditation and all this teaching that you've got is only to bring us to that moment when
That
we see it
moment-
ourselves and we're free.
But let me say it again. To bring you back to realize of yourself, you can do nothing.
Yes.
Because you can't originate. You can't originate the universe. You can't originate your own thoughts. Actually, you cannot, but you think you do.
The funny thing is, if you realize you're totally helpless, you have the power of God behind you. If you don't realize you're totally helpless, He can't work through you.
But I didn't realize anything.
No, but you just saw what you were and you didn't try to make
But
anything.
it was a gift.
Yes.
It's a gift
It's a
every
gift. It's
child
always
has.
a gift.
But when they come into the world, the parents are in the way. Because of the extension, they're standing in their parents' shoes. And in generations and generations and generations, so if you're born in Borneo, you'll be that way. You'll be born in Hitler, Germany, you'll be that way. But the point is, there are some places, like in America, where you have an opportunity, and we're losing it. And the media doesn't like me. For 50 years, more than 50 years, they've kept me away. And all I'm trying to say is, and people will say, what's the matter with Roy Masters? You have to have emotion. No. Emotion connects you to the dark side of the person that is upsetting you or making you feel better than you deserve. And that's all there is.
That's it.
And that's not life. You've got to be free to be able to see. And so what God does, what God did to that man, for me to see, I said, I don't know what I'm doing. He's not going to be hypnotizable, right? I said, now close your eyes and just do this. Just watch your thoughts. That's it. Just watch your thoughts and it will disappear. I go back to my point of view when I had that stone. But when I felt that stone, I wonder what that is. And that's what he says, why are you doing that? I said, come back in 2 days and you'll see. But I didn't know that was going to work. I just said it.
Yeah, he just said it.
It just said it. He's a difficult person. And he's tried everything. He's tried hypnosis. Tried everything. He cannot stop drinking. And his life is in danger. And so, yeah, I'll try it. I said, do this. Can you feel your fingers tingling? Well, there's a reason for that we won't go into right now. I understood that part. I said, are you doing this? He says, yes. I said, can you feel your first finger, second finger? Can you feel it? You're giving it energy. And see those little pixels crossing your mind? That's your programming. Like the little plug you put into the computer with all the information.
Right.
You can't figure all that information. It's all there. Any more you don't want to know how it works, or you need to know that you should let it work. But the trouble is, your emotions cause you to react to the forces
ideas floating by,
outside.
you start reacting before you know it, you're caught
Yeah,
up in
but
it.
there's the Eve, that which spoke to Eve. That is what's speaking to us this day.
Yes. That's the next step.
Yes.
I don't know
So
if we're
that's
gonna
the
get to it.
disconnect. And so
what happened when he came back?
So when he came back, he says, what did you do to me? I said, nothing, you did it to yourself.
His problem was gone.
Yes, I wasn't drinking. He said, how is that? I'm not drinking, I don't want it.
I don't want it.
Yeah, I saw you because you're aware of it. If you're aware of it, if struggling with it, you see, you can't of yourself do nothing. So whatever happened to you in your childhood caused you to become like this. And the more you struggle, the worse you get. You're not able to save yourself. You're not able to create a universe. You are subject to something that created the universe. Animals have emotion. Monkeys have emotion. They run, they fight. That's emotion. But when they finish running, when they're finished fighting, it doesn't continue. But because of sin, we have the nature of the dark side in the Force. Animals don't have the dark side of the Force, they're just animals. And stress and pressure makes them function, and they get better. And if they get better, they multiply. If they don't get better, they get eaten. But human beings eat each other. They don't even know they're doing it.
They think it's love.
The parents don't know that if what was done to them when they were kids, if the mother was wicked, if the mother was too nice, and because if you're too nice to a person, you lift them up, make them feel better. And it's a seduction. And so there's two kinds of, and then all of a sudden you find yourself that you're being seduced, and you feel after a while you feel that your mother is pulling you in and taking your life force away. And you get upset. When you get upset, you feel guilty. When you feel guilty, you've got to give in again.
And then you give in again.
Yeah.
Then you reject her.
And you cannot get out of it. And other people can opt in.
Yeah, and if you separate from your mother, or if she dies or runs away, you'll pick another substitute mother in somebody else.
It's always its mother extending dark side. It's not, forgive me for saying this, but women are different from men. There's a divine order. And if you want to turn a country inside out, make the woman more important than the man.
Change things around.
It's off backwards.
So with your successes at the Institute of Hypnosis, what did the medical establishment in Houston do?
Well, one day, since you brought the subject up, and this is a story, and this is one of the complex stories you will get out of me if you continue, because you know what most of them are, right?
I know.
And so,
let's make this, because we've been going an hour and a half. Let's make this part the end of this. We'll take a break,
right,
and
do it next
see
week.
What happens, because this is a very good story, because this is the story of what this foreshadows what happens to you every step of the way when you go to California, to Oregon. It always happens the same way.
Well, after the headlines, which can be put on the Facebook, I think we took it off, but still. After that, I went into the Foundation of Human Understanding.
Institute of Hypnosis.
That's right, I'm sorry. But the headlines disturbed the doctors, and they accused me of practicing medicine without a license. And that is not so, because everybody's hypnotizing everybody else to this very day. You understand the way I said? And so when you are angry, or when you are programmed, you become a person like the media, who are upside down, back to front. They always see evil as good and good as evil. Remember what I said about Hitler. If you see Hitler in a good light when you're angry, you have to be angrier and angrier. And then you have to take your frustration out on somebody else. And you build a whole system of things. And so when you have a system of things, you have a system of evil. If emotion can make you angry and have a man love you make you feel better about your anger, and as if to say that anger is the way to do unto others what was done unto you, a lot of people will have problems with that. They are upset and they don't like being upset. And the more they try to be upset, the more they suppress themselves. They're not going to hurt anybody. But those who are the ones I describe will do unto others what was done unto them, and you could build a whole system. And so, and I'm saying
So what happened was, I can kind of summarize some of what happened in Houston was they sent in, the psychiatrist got somebody through the Better Business Bureau to send somebody in who's already hypnotized.
It was
supposedly hypnotized.
no,
against you.
it wasn't Better Business Bureau. He got the prize of it.
Okay.
And so they put me in jail.
Yeah.
And they had a trial, and I never had any experiences before. So an attorney came up. He said, "Let me help you," and he didn't know what the hell he's doing. And so I go to jail. As I walk into the big room where all the bad guys are, as I come into that room, and there's 100 of them, at least 50, 100. It was like parting the Red Seas. And it was my influence. There's another story about that. It's even more important and more dangerous, and I'll share with you that next time.
Okay.
But the bad guys went to the right. The halfway decent kids on the left, and they pulled me into a different tank, and they were getting better. And the headlines means hypnotist spells and cells. Yeah. And the chief cook or bottle washer of the prison said, the warden, yes, I can forget the names. Appreciate your thoughts here and additions. And he says, "Roy, this is only political. Why don't you let it go?" I said, "No, I have an opportunity to save lives here," and I continued. That was it. And so he put me in solitary confinement. And guess what happened? All the prisoners I was helping gave me chicken every day.
The best food they had in prison.
That's right.
Yeah. So.
And then when I was finished, and I came out, the gentleman who did that became the head of Better Business Bureau.
That's the connection. Okay.
And therefore, so now I need to take care of him.
Yeah.
And I am embarrassed by that because that's being a little bit out of order.
Yeah.
And so I started photography. I went from store to store because I need money. He's blocked my ability to carry on with the Institute of Hypnosis. And so I went from door to door with a cheap camera and the usual chemicals, and I went to each store, and I made a living. But after every day at 12 o'clock, I'm sitting in a restaurant so you can see me as he comes out for lunch, and then back again. I'll wait. And every time he walks past, I could see him get upset. I could see he doesn't look. He sees me, and there I am, eating a sandwich. That's post-traumatic stress technique. In other words, I can make your tie put you to sleep and stand on your head every night for the rest of your life, and you wouldn't know I did it. We need to understand how hypnosis is and why you can have so many different kinds of people in the world. Crazy. Every culture is crazy. But in America, you have a chance to be real. But the media tried to take that away from me for 50 years.
Yes.
But that didn't bother me either. I did it anyway.
And you survived.
Yeah, always.
And you survived to tell your story.
Yeah, there's more. There's some more between that 50 years.
I know.
But the interesting thing was this. And so when I thought he was ripe, and I'm not proud of this, if you don't mind me saying so. I should have left it alone. But I think it needed to be done. And so when he walked past, he felt a flinch. If you go to my website, you could see a hypnotist. You could see me making a person change his shoes around, and while he's appears to be fully awake, he has his shoes on backwards. And every time I say, why are you wearing your shoes on your wrong feet? He says, because they felt uncomfortable. Do you remember what I said? When you come up here, I'm going to make you change your shoes on the wrong feet so your feet go outwards. So, do you remember that? He says, yes, I remember what you said. So I said, well, why are you doing it? He says, they felt uncomfortable. See? Excuses. Every excuse you make is the evidence that you're in a hypnotic state.
And it reinforces the hypnotic state.
That's right, it does. But in the end, I helped to cure this boy, this young man. I just didn't want to put him on the...
Right.
Make him look a stupid idiot.
Yeah.
I actually took him through it, and he became a better human being right in front of you. You can see that on the web. Mm-hmm. I have 100 million views at least. Mm-hmm. Anyway,
so
coming to the point.
Okay.
So I went upstairs when I thought I was ready. This big, heavy, fat guy. And
this is the man who came in and faked it with you in your office and got you on
my
trial.
father is an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. I said, well, you resent your father, you become like your father, and you can do the same things to get rid of your pain. Mm-hmm. That's all there is to it. What is that? That's practicing medicine without license, which is all not true. Yeah. Because all the advertisements and everything's all the same thing. Mm-hmm. They're hypnotizable. Everybody's hypnotizable. Exactly. Everybody. They don't even know it. But I do. When I went up to his office, I said, I want to speak to Mr. Schmagegi. I don't remember his name. And he says, the secretary says, oh, I'll call him. And he wouldn't come out. I said, you tell him he's a coward. I need to speak to him. Even if I want to apologize, he needs to come out. He came out. I said, that's the state I want him in. If you get a person angry, he's yours. And all I did was sit quietly there and say, you're a coward. That's it. And I said, you want to hit me. You hit me or you run. He ran. And nobody ever saw him again. Another person took his place and gave me my business back.
And that eventually that started another chapter in your life.
Well, I did one more thing. I called a psychiatrist and I manipulated him. Mm-hmm. I hate to say this, but that's what I did. And I said, do you realize what you did? What if I took a girl, hypnotized her, and so she looks like she has an illness, and you take her as a patient, and all of a sudden she cries, help, 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 I'm getting raped. And I said, how would you like me to do that? You see, I know I can do it. And you know it could be done. Click. I wouldn't do it. Click. Of course I wouldn't do it. I left it with anxiety. Mm-hmm. See?
You do that a lot. You leave a lot of people with anxiety.
Oh, I make them worse.
Even people who look good. And the trouble is that if you do it innocently instead of connivingly, you leave them with that anxiety, they can wake up or they can let it grow and turn into whatever they
I spoke the worst part of myself that time. I know.
But it's neat because I want to pursue that as it unfolds in the rest of your stories, because you learn the little differences. You learn that you are a pawn in the Father's hands, and you have to be the catalyst that sets people.
That's right.
To challenge them, their own sense of false morality.
I am going to try, which is not going to be easy, to make people realize that innocent children, if you can let them be innocent and not over-cuddle them, which is not good, and be impatient with them, is not good. It continues the continuum of generations. And in America, we have a chance of discovering how a person can really be. And when you start to think of not having an emotion, it's scary because you've only known it. That's all you've ever known from the day you were born. But you come into the world with intuition. You have the intuition Adam had, but you haven't got a chance to use it. And so you come into the world and the world comes into you. And therefore you take on the identities, or try not to be, but even trying not to be is emotion, and you get worse. And you think everything, so if you make mistakes, you think it's your mistake, but it's the nature of the spirit of Paradise Lost all the way back from the beginning. It makes the point that,
Yes.
that the Bible is absolutely correct.
Right on, yes. Well, let me address our audience. Again, I want to remind you, if you want to be part of this project, if you want to make some donations that would come to help us finance the project, we're actually moving on a rapid timetable, but go to fhu.com/film. You can register there. We'll give you updates, and if you have a story to tell, if you want to be part of this in some way, if you want to be part of it as a volunteer to help us put on, we're going to have locations in LA and in Grants Pass, so we'll need some volunteers to help us set everything up and get it going. If you have any way you want to give, and you want to get on the list, let us know. There's a way to feedback there, and we'll proceed with Roy's Life Part 2.
Can I have one shot more?
Yes.
Just a titty, which I'm going to be doing over and over again, that God takes away emotion that allows you to be subject to the world. As long as you have emotion and try to heal yourself by struggling with emotion because it takes energy and it's always the wrong energy, He will take the energy away that leads to hell and suffering, disease, God knows what. He will take it away. And you will be like that little kid that I was. And all I did was, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why. But I don't have to know that time. And I don't have to know the next time. But as long as I wasn't upset, as long as I wondered, oh, the wondering led in the long run to seeing things more clearly, and eventually I could see that the extension was from that little boy, becoming more and more ability to see and not understand, to see and not understand. Oh, all of a sudden you see, and all of a sudden it's important, and this starts to come, and one begins, another one begins, but you find yourself never reacting and therefore holding your ground, continuously holding your ground without knowing you're holding your ground. I'm doing the same thing every day, whatever it was. The older I get, the better I am at it. So I'm less and less emotional, but magical things begin to happen, like growing a new heart. How would you like to grow a brand new heart? We'll discuss that next week. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
That was very nice.